Welcome to the Harmony Channel. I'm Jason Whitlock. Man, I'm trying to do a lot today in real time, but we feel like we have to cover the latest things going on in the Nolan Wells case. Ben Crump and Al Sharpton, as we speak, I think are wrapping up a press conference that's been going on for about 45 minutes. Ben Crump and Al Sharpton, the civil rights terrorist / activist, are in New York City talking about a boating tragedy that happened in Mississippi. They're in New York City talking about a boating tragedy that happened in Mississippi. I think these people used to be called carpetbaggers. I think that's what we used to call them. They used to be liberal white people that would come down to the South and stir up trouble. Now we have liberal black people, Marxist black people, race idolaters in New York City coming down to Mississippi to stir up trouble. And there's a bunch of ways, or two different ways I want to cover it. And I believe, am I right? Shamika, Michelle, and Virgil are going to join me at some point or whenever I shut up and quit talking. They're here now, but I want to set up a couple of different conversations. I'm going to start with my Dumb and Dumber take. Because Ben Crump, and what really, really annoys me about him is just how certifiably, undeniably stupid he is. I've never seen a lawyer who's called this civil rights icon who is this illiterate and can barely communicate. What lawyer can barely communicate? I've only lived 59 years. Perhaps some of you have lived longer. Perhaps some of you have seen more than I have in 59 years. But communication is very important for a lawyer. This guy communicates like he has CTE. He is definitely dumb. Al Sharpton's a better communicator, but he's even dumber. And so Dumb and Dumber are holding a press conference in New York City trying to take advantage of a tragedy that happened in Mississippi. This is incredible that we have to tolerate this stuff, that we live in this time where this type of racial animus and gamesmanship and games playing, this is Black Chud the Builders. The yin to his yang or whatever, but that's all. This is Black Chud the Builder. Chud went around trolling black people saying the N-word. Dumb and Dumber get on camera and troll white people by saying racist. But one of these guys, in all transparency, I've met Ben Crump. We were in Las Vegas at the same time, I'd say 10, 12 years ago. I was upstairs at the VIP sports book for the MGM, and Ben Crump was in the booth next to me. And I was like, man, that's Ben Crump. And this was maybe the Trayvon Martin or Michael Brown case, or one of these cases was still bubbling in the news. And we sat down next to each other and had a conversation. We disagreed, but we exchanged pleasantries and conversation. I'd say 30 minutes, an hour. And I came away overwhelmingly unimpressed. I've met a lot of people that I've disagreed with that I was impressed with. Like, hey, that's an impressive person that with command of the language, brilliant. That's not the way I came away from interacting with Ben Crump. I'm like, who's backing this? Who is pulling off, at this time I didn't know the word psyop, or I wasn't using the word psyop, but like there's got to be a source of power behind this gimmick that I'm unaware of, because there's no way this guy's not smart. And so I want to play a couple of clips of Ben Crump as he yesterday started promoting his press conference about Nolan Wells. And Nolan Wells, for those of you that may have been under a rock, he's an 18-year-old kid from Mississippi that was at a lake-like, river-like boat party cove area. I think they call it Horn Island down in Mississippi. And he's there. He's pictured with 3 or 4 of his best white friends, and they're on a boat. And he apparently drowns on the 4th of July weekend. His body washes up on July the 6th. And instantly social media goes to, well, if he drowned, one of these white guys must have killed him. And you should be careful who you let your kids hang out with. You let your kids hang out with their 3 best white friends, and it's more than likely they're going to get killed in some sort of boating deal. And did you not hear this video? There were kids arguing. And maybe there was a fight beforehand. There's been all this endless speculation. And the 3 white kids made it home, and Nolan Wells didn't. It must be racism. They must have killed him. There's been no autopsy. The body washes ashore on July the 6th. It's now July the 10th, 4 days later. But starting on July 6th, Twitter, social media does what it does and turn this into, well, this is Austin Metcalf 2.0. This is Carmelo Anthony 2.0. This is a race crime. And the next thing you know, on July the 7th, Dumb shows up. The parents of Nolan Wells hire Ben Crump. You hire Ben Crump because you want money, not justice. Ben Crump is not involved in the justice business. He's involved in the financial shakedown business. And he's an idiot. Look, I haven't spent a lot of time in Mississippi. I have spent a lot of time in the South. I know what smart, country-sounding people sound like in the South. And I know what dumb people sound like in the South. Ben Crump is dumb. Let's play SOT 5.
His family is not accepting that it was an accidental drowning. They haven't been told anything, but that's been the suggestion. And they're not accepting that because Nolan was a college football player. He was a superior athlete. He was in great fitness and condition. And so for them to try to say, well, we got his phone, but we don't know where he's at, and then he turns up dead, they are not accepting it. And there are so many questions, so many contradictions.
And then he turns up dead. There are so many contradictions. This is a dummy. And I know I'm not supposed to say that. I know, Jason, that's racist. You're a sellout. He's an idiot. I've been listening to this man talk for years. None of the points he makes are logical. Oh, he's got a law degree, Jason. How can you question his intelligence? You don't understand this country, and you don't know what lengths they'll go to install racial agitators. Getting him a law degree, getting him through law school. And again, these things aren't accidental. These people are planted years ago and developed. And there's a reason why Ben Carson isn't seen as some sort of leader, why Clarence Thomas isn't seen as some type of leader, that only ignoramuses get installed and promoted by the media as some sort of civil rights icon and leader. Here's a man with no command of the English language. And somehow they fooled everybody into, oh man, this is a brilliant lawyer, graduated from Florida State Law School, and, passed the bar, and, been the president of the National Bar Association. They've given him a resume to use him in this capacity. There's no autopsy. And he's out running around fanning the flames of racism without any proof. This is a bona fide idiot. This is whatever rapper you can think of. You don't see the pattern here? Rappers, the media loves to go to them. Hey, let's go find out what Snoop Dogg thinks about whatever. Let's sprinkle a little Snoop Dogg on everything. Let's go talk to Jay-Z about what the black community should do. These idiots are installed. Remember, I wish I had the clip from, what's his name? Birdman from Cash Money Records is speaking at a jail. You think a book and reading's going to help you? These are the type of leaders that are installed and put in front of black people by the system, by the power structure, by the puppet masters. Ben Crump has been installed. Al Sharpton has been installed. Man has owed back taxes for decades, but somehow the government allows him to run around. These are MK Ultras. These are the people placed in front of black people and said, these are your role models. They can barely speak English. They're borderline retarded. They give you nothing but bad advice. And they're there to stir racial animus and to make you angry with white people and for white people to be angry with black people. Let's play Shot 6 of Ben Crump.
On top of the fact that we know there are videos circulating where there's an argument where you hear Nolan arguing with somebody, and we're trying to say, this is too much to just try to sweep under the rug. No, we want to have a thorough investigation as if it was 3 black boys and a white boy who was with them ended up dead. We want that same investigation.
So, kid goes missing on July 4th. Washes ashore where he can be found on July 6th. On July 7th, the family hires Ben Crump. So Ben Crump's never met Nolan Wells. I doubt he's talked to any kid that was out there at this party cove on boats. So these 3 kids that they're accusing of having done something to Nolan Wells, he's never met or talked to them, but he's talking about them and this incident as if he's some sort of expert. How? How can you acquire that kind of expertise in just a couple of days? From talking to the parents? How do you, in just a few days, hey, and now we're going to go to New York City and hold a press conference with Al Sharpton. He doesn't know anybody involved in this. But we know he's capable and willing to participate in racial hoax, particularly if he thinks there's a paycheck at the end of that racial hoax. This is the Tawana Brawley creator from the 1980s. They're doing it all over again with this Nolan Wells situation. This is the value of dead young black men. They can be used by civil rights terrorists to stir racial animus in America. And the whole system. Well, look at these 2 retards, Dumb and Dumber, and treat them as if there's some sort of important spokesman, some sort of intellectual leader, some sort of person with any type of moral authority or character. The whole media ecosystem will treat them as if they're Booker T. Washington and Frederick Douglass. These are 2 retards, installed retards. No different than Stephen A. Smith, the man that flunked fourth grade, a man that made up some basketball history at Winston-Salem State. He's at the top of the sports media landscape. You don't see a pattern here? You don't see anything wrong with the biggest idiots from your high school class, the guys that stayed in and out of trouble in high school, got arrested, got kicked out of school, got D's and F's in school. Oh, but they can do these nursery school profane rhymes, and now we give them a seat at the table. Tell us what's wrong with America. Tell us about America's history and how we should adjust things. Tell us how the government should run. This is intentional. This is, I want to play one more clip from Ben Crump, SOT 8.
The Wells family, how Nolan's parents, how are they coping in this moment?
Lindsay, they are in disbelief. They are in disbelief. You know, Nolan was to report back on Monday after the 4th of July to his college. That's when fall practice started. He did phenomenal. He was looking forward to getting an NIL deal with Division I football. He had everything going for them himself, and his family just can't believe that he's gone.
Right there. This man was playing football, allegedly, at a community college. This is no sort of high-end high school football star. He was looking forward to getting an NIL deal with a Division I team. There's no proof of that. Ben, he is playing football at a community college. Ben, that's what he was doing. This is a retard. I know I'm not supposed to say that. I should have sympathy, but just because they put him in a nice suit doesn't stop him from being a retard. This man has CTE. He was looking forward to. Does he have Parkinson's? What? Shamika, Virgil, welcome in to the show. Virgil, I'll start with you. Am I being too hard? Am I being too hard on Ben Crump? He is a civil rights leader. The situation is.
I think your Ben Crump impersonation is spot on, and it's disappointing. But Jason, I want to start here because as I heard this story unfold, I think my wife actually brought it to me, and one of the reasons why it was so jarring for us was I have a son who's 21 years old. He is traveling. He's out in another part of the country and involved in sales. And so I immediately thought, and his friend group is multifaceted, white kids, black kids, and the whole nine. And my thought was, how would I feel if I received the call that something had first of all happened to my son, only to find that he had died under strange circumstances. And my heart, as I thought through that, just sunk into my stomach. I could not think of how I would feel as a dad who wants to protect his son, who wants to make sure that he's cared for and okay. I'd be concerned about the circumstances. One of the things I would never do in that instance, even under immense grief, would be to call Ben Crump. There's no circumstance on the planet. There's no amount of money in the world that would cause me in my overwhelming grief to call Ben Crump and to have him and Al Sharpton represent anything related to understanding the facts around the death of a son. That would not be something I would do. It would be a waste of time and energy, and the like. And then to have them arrest the narrative for their own economic purposes, for their own value add is absolutely unbearable. For them to monetize the tears of that family so that they could be in front of an audience and see and be relevant and to seek attention, claiming to know the last clip you showed, claiming to know this boy, trying to offer up some sense of who he was, having all of the facts wrong. Like, don't do that. Of all the things that you could do, it would be to take the time to understand who this young man was if you're going to represent him, and be able to articulate who he was in the right context. I don't know how that wouldn't, for that family, be an absolute record scratch and an immediate point at which I'd pick up the phone and say, you're off the case, because you're not representing who my son was accurately. That alone should be sufficient. The call should have never been made. But there's so many facets to this, Jason, that I think are important for us to think about, because this racializing of every situation and every issue is absolutely ridiculous. And it's sad that it's so easy for it to happen in the Black community, given the history we know, from BLM to Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton. All of this should cause us pause. We should go, that's probably not the right call.
I've been seeing this go on for years and years. I think about the Jenna 6 case down in Jenna, Louisiana, and I went down there as a journalist in late 2000s, 2006, 2007, somewhere, and got to the bottom of that case. Allegedly, 6 Black boys were overcharged by police because they nearly beat a white kid to death, and they came up with this narrative, this story. Well, they only beat him up because 4 or 5 months previous, someone had hung a noose at the school, and the school didn't properly discipline or investigate that. And that's why 4 or 5 months later, they nearly beat this white kid to death. And the whole world, Jesse Jackson was in on that. Al Sharpton was in on that. And I went down there and just like, no, actually, there's this white liberal minister from Texas that came up with this narrative and this theory. Alan Bean, I believe, was the guy's name. And it's like, it's over and over and over again. It never stops. No matter how many times they get busted, it never stops. But I didn't think, this is what takes my mind away, is like, Jesse Jackson had a measure of intellect and some previous credibility that, I could see how they could make that sell. Shamika, I don't know how they're making these sales over and over again. I just don't see how they're just doing it. He's a retard. I don't. It blows my mind.
Yeah, I don't see it either. Just listening to him talk makes me laugh. I can't take him seriously. Listen, I wouldn't have a problem with the family wanting to get to the bottom of this, wanting to ask questions, to get some type of clarity, uncover everything, turn over every stone, interview the fish. That's not my problem. My problem, though, is running with the race narrative and then bringing in Ben Crump, bringing in Al Sharpton, the people that will hijack whatever to make it about race. Honestly, there could be some foul play involved, but not necessarily just because he's Black. They could have argued over a female. It could have been some money involved. They could have been drinking and he fell off the boat and they didn't know what to do. So many other things that could have gone wrong. They want to jump to, it's because of race. Oh, it's because we're in Mississippi. And I just think that's the wrong path to take. Bringing in Colin Kaepernick and Tyler Perry, all of your usuals, Spike Lee, just making this about race, I think is the wrong thing to do. Acting as if white people are just inherently racist and evil. I think it's the wrong thing. I wouldn't have a problem with the parents saying, hey, we just want to get to the bottom of this. It's the race narrative, though, that I'm sick of, and I just think is the wrong thing.
Schmidt, you've nailed it, but particularly they're pushing a lot of chips into this table. They got Spike Lee at this press con. What does Spike Lee have to do with this? What does he know? Isn't he still partying with the New York Knicks for winning the title? I mean, is he some sort of expert? Why? Why is Tyler Perry there? A lot of chips are getting pushed into the table, and it's like the MK Ultra class of Hollywood celebrities and the Al Sharptons and the Ben Crumps. I think, and this is my art, it's because it happened in Mississippi. And whether or not there's a shred of truth to it, you can just frame everybody in Mississippi as racist. The black people, they're even racist. They hate black people and they participate. The fish in Mississippi, they're racist. And people will believe it and just think that there's no way he could have really been friends with these white boys and been out on his boat. That's Mississippi. And it's like the people that only have heard about Mississippi through books or TV shows or movies, like they're going to buy that like everybody in Mississippi is a screaming, retarded racist. And I think that if this happened any place else, Buffalo or anywhere in Texas, but it's Mississippi, and black people have been brainwashed into believing that everything in Mississippi, the grass is racist, the trees are racist, farts are racist in Mississippi, that Mississippi is the real target here, and that's why they're pushing so many chips into the table. But they've been so aggressive about it, Shamika, at this point, that I'm like, do they know something we don't know? It does give me a little bit of pause to see them go all in, like we know something y'all don't know, and when this comes out, we're going to be legitimized, and Whitlock and all the people that say proceed with caution are going to get exposed. Do you have that feeling, Shamika?
I just think that there were young people involved. I know when young people sometimes make mistakes, they don't carry themselves the right way. They make it worse instead of making it better. I've seen so many documentaries where, they just did something wrong. So I think it's absolutely possible that something could have gone wrong. We've seen cases where, and we talked about this yesterday, where there was the young black lady, I think, out of Charlotte who went on vacation with her friends, and they were all black. But they got, they were drinking, they got into an altercation. It looked as if they were beating her, and then she ended up dead. They had gotten into a fight or whatever. Things like that happen so often. So I think that it's possible. It's just the fact that we want to make people think, oh, you can't hang around white people. If you're around white people, something's bound to happen. Teach your children that they can't be friends with white people. I just don't like that argument, because the reality is, a black boy is more likely to die at the hands of another black boy than he is just hanging around white people. We're just pushing the wrong narrative. But I do think it's possible that there could have been some foul play. And I think it's also possible that although he was an athlete, he couldn't swim, especially if alcohol is involved. So I just think that there should be, other possibilities opposed to them just running with, oh, he was killed because he was black, and we're not going to get any truth because Mississippi is racist. I just think that's the wrong way to go about it.
Virgil, before you comment, I want to play this clip of Ben Crump talking about how Colin Kaepernick paid for the autopsy. And again, this is where I'm just like, man, they are pushing all their chips in the table. They done dusted off Colin Kaepernick. Jussie Smollett must be on the way. They're about to dig up the grave of Emmett Till and have him speak at one of these press conferences. And that's literally what I think they're trying to make this Emmett Till 2.0. But let's play the clip.
We're having an independent autopsy done at the behest of his family. Colin Kaepernick helped pay for the independent autopsy. We flew his body up from Mississippi to D.C. because they wanted an autopsy done by a person with no interaction with the Mississippi law enforcement, because there's an issue of trust here that is really important. And the fact that they keep trying to say, well, suggesting it was a drowning, but nobody out there reported him drowning, it's not adding up, Michael Strahan. It is not adding up.
I get Virgil. I think they're playing the Emmett Till card here. I really do. Emmett Till was in Mississippi, right?
Yeah, they absolutely are trying to do that. And it's interesting because they keep using the word Mississippi, recognizing that has some historical racial narrative. When this actually happened in Jackson County, and the Jackson County sheriff, he needs to get ahead of this. His name is John Ledbetter. And if it were me and I were him, in an effort to safeguard the community that he lives in from all of the racial tension that will inevitably be a part of what's happening right now, he needs to run his own press conference and get in front of the narrative, give the facts that he knows, unpack those, even if he doesn't answer a ton of questions about it. Let him know, hey, there's an ongoing investigation. When we get more information, we'll be the first to let you know. But we want you to know that we care about the family, we care about Nolan Wells and his well-being and what happened to him, and we're going to get down to the truth. They need to get ahead of that. And sitting back and writing up, because the only thing that he's done down there is typed up memorandums or press releases and sent them out. No, you actually need to get in front of the cameras, face those, or have some representative of the organization, some PR person at the organization, represent and give the facts. I don't say PR from the standpoint of polishing up something bad, but being honest about what's there, because otherwise this gets crazy. I agree with your assessment of Emmett Till 2.0. But here's the other thing that I spent time trying to take a look at. I thought about the weekend of the 4th of July, which is when this happened, and I automatically, my thought went to Chicago. And what I found was that 5 blacks were killed in Chicago, 23 were hospitalized. In 2025, 9 blacks were killed, 40 hospitalized. In 2024, 19 were killed, 86 were hospitalized. So here you have a situation where none of these people that died or are even hospitalized have had a Ben Crump or an Al Sharpton show up and mention Emmett Till, right? Nobody is flying the bodies of the five blacks that were killed in Chicago over the same weekend. Nobody is flying their body. No Colin Kaepernick is paying for autopsies for these 5 black folks who lost their lives so that they can get an independent assessment of what's transpired in Chicago. No one's doing that. And they won't. And the reason why they won't is because it doesn't pay like using Mississippi. It doesn't pay like using the tears of a black mother who is crying at the loss of her child in an environment where there were white people. It doesn't pay. So they'll ignore 5 deaths for this one because this one fits a specific narrative that advantages their cause.
I want to play, and this will be difficult to do, but I'm going to do it. I'm questioning the parents in just a real way for participating in this. And I know they've been given a sales pitch about this is what we need to do to fight racism. And don't you know Donald Trump's in office? And, even if we're not 100% right here, this is important. But they are on a television campaign, PR campaign with Ben Crump out. Anyway, let's play SOT 12.
I just want to ask you, the friends that Nolan traveled to Horn Island with, they say that he stayed behind voluntarily. Why would he stay behind?
That we cannot answer. I can't I can't fathom why he would. Like,
I don't know why he would. We always taught him to, if you go with a group, you stay with a group. Even when he was in college, he would say, Dad, well, we're gonna ride down to a party or something in another city. Now, so I was telling him, look, if you go with 5, you come back with 5. Do not separate from your group. Because I always said safety is in numbers. And he always said, yes, sir. So he knew to stay with his group. So why would he split from his group? I don't know.
So that would have been unusual for him to split from the group. And you said he would always check in with you. Did he check in with you that day?
so that day, no, I don't. But of course, too, they were on the boat, and usually when he is out there, which it's not uncommon, he's, I think, since last year, he's been going there occasionally with his friends. And so it would always just be like, hey, Mom, I'm back, type of thing. But this time there was no call or text from him. It was from his friend.
And then, too, really didn't worry a lot about it because, it was his last weekend to have fun. Because that Monday, he had to report to school. We was preparing to take him back for camp to prepare for the season. So, we're going to see. He wanted to have his last hurrah before he locked down and get ready for the season. Because, like I said, the entire summer he's training. He got more serious. He started to understand what I was trying to tell him about football, not just being fun, but as you get farther in it, it becomes a business. If you want to excel, you have to understand. You have to understand both at the same time.
Here's the possibility of how they could have responded and been honest. Like, yeah, we tried to tell him, but not to leave a group. But, kids are kids. And I know when I was a kid, I didn't do everything my parents told me. And so it's not that hard to understand. But first, I don't believe the father in terms of the conversation. I told him if there's 5, he blah, blah, blah. Miss me with all that. It's the conversations aren't that specific, but look, maybe he did, but it's still not hard to understand. You know how many different things my parents told me that went in one ear and out the other, and they told me that went in one ear and out the other, and that's why you ain't going nowhere this weekend, or that's why I'm putting this belt to your rear end right now, blah, blah. This is just standard par for the course. I don't like, and I get being hurt. I get their son has passed away. I get it. Shamika, I don't like this response from them.
Yeah, I think when I listen to this, Jason, it just totally rules out the race narrative. So what they said was this young boy has been going to this Horn Island for over a year with these friends. So they chose the 4th of July to kill him simply because he's Black. That just doesn't make sense to me. So I think it would have been good to say, he's really close friends with them. They've been friends for such a long time. But we want to get to the bottom of this. Again, if I had lost a child, I would want to get to the bottom of it. I would want questions answered. But I think they should be honest and they should be fair to these young boys that, hey, we don't believe he was mistreated simply because he's Black. He's been going out there for a year with them. He's been hanging with them a while. I saw something that said they've been friends for years. I don't know, but I think the public should be told that, maybe so the public would stop with the whole it's just because he's Black. I think they could have done a better job, but I think because they're sitting beside Ben Crump and they know Al Sharpton is going to be involved, that they can't really say those things even if it's true.
Virgil?
I look at this from a standpoint of the high bar that Jeff Metcalf set in his interview. And when he was interviewed at the point, days after the understanding of his son's murder, right? And now we know that was the case. He could have easily allowed race, and in fact was baited during the course of a number of interviews, was baited into allowing race to be the central issue. And he absolutely emphatically stated the opposite, right? Saying this is not about race. and then goes on to say, we want to know all the facts, get the truth. They had that opportunity and absolutely missed it. It would have served them better. What happened would have been a city that rallied around trying to identify what actually was true. Instead, what they've done is they've divided a community using Ben Crump, using Al Sharpton, pulling this thing from Jackson County all the way to Washington, D.C. and thereby New York. I'm thinking as I'm watching that, why in the world would they fly to New York to ABC Studios in Times Square to do that interview? Like, I would be so grievous. You couldn't pull me out of my home if I knew that something like that had happened to my son. How in the world is that even a possibility? And for you to even respond in any kind of a calm manner, that's the other thing that hit me. That even Jeff Metcalf was emotional. Jason, you did the interview with him. This is after the verdict. He still, as he thought about what transpired with his son, couldn't keep back tears. As he still maintained, hey, this is not a race issue. There were, Black kids who came and testified, and that's why we had to shield them from public view and with cameras in the courtroom and the like. I mean, there was a way to go about this. They've made all the wrong decisions, and they're not learning from the mistakes of the Carmelo Anthonys of the world, not to bring these race baiters, these race traders into the conversation to stir up a narrative that has absolutely nothing to do with getting down to the truth.
Man, you made excellent points, but particularly hey, the truth that you're looking for, it's not in New York.
Right.
It's nowhere. It's not on the East Coast. I don't know how many miles. Just give me an estimation miles between New York City and Jackson County, Mississippi, or whatever it is. You've gone completely away.
It's got to be 1,500. It's got to be 1,500 miles off the top of my head. It's got to be at least
completely away from where the actual truth is, and I guess you think if I go to New York, I can put pressure. 1,200 miles. They've gone 1,200 miles the wrong direction. I guess we're going to use these New York liberals to put pressure on Mississippi and the South. This is old school civil rights playbook. This is what was going on during the civil rights movement. The New York liberals were telling the people in the South how they should behave and how they should operate and how they should run things. And maybe it'll work again. When I sit here and think about it, I'm going to ask Chad Jackson to come on with us next week and just put this in historical perspective, because they are playing the Emmett Till card and pretending like it's 1955 all over again. And there is an audience that wants to pretend like it's 1955 all over again, and they're pandering to them. I want to play SOT 13, and then we'll try to land this plane.
You say you have Nolan.
So when I received the phone call from Warren, I immediately called my friend Tashima, and I said, hey, have you guys seen Nolan? Because her two sons, Jalen and Javon, they grew up together. They played City League sports together. When they got into school, they played sports together. And so she was like, hey, okay, the boys were pulling up the location from Snapchat. So the Snapchat location looks completely different than the Life 360 location. So when I pulled up Life 360, it was different. It was showing everywhere the phone had been. I was like, well, it's showing that he's back on land. I'm not. He's like, but no, he didn't come back with us.
Because the tides in Mississippi are different than other tides, and in other places bodies wash up on Saturdays, not on Sundays, because tides respect the Sabbath, and tides, they know that Sunday is the day devoted to Christ and God, and you just don't wash bodies up on a Sunday. You do it, or was it a Monday or whatever? I can't remember, but yeah. This all sounds retarded. Go ahead, Virgil.
It was Sunday. Listen, I've got boys, two boys, who know that that on their phone I've got Live 360. I can pull up right now and show you exactly where they're located. Now, if they don't want me to know where they're going, here's what they would do. They would hand their phone to their friend, tell their friend, roll back to the crib. I'm gonna stay here with this so-and-so, and we're gonna do whatever we're gonna do. Knowing that if I pull up the phone and I see where they're at, I'm going, okay, they're safe, they're where they need to be, right? That's what they would do. They know that if I ever see the 360 shut off, that's the moment that they're paying for their own phone and I'm not paying for it anymore. Right. So, I mean, there's all kinds of things that go. We don't have to jump to this racial conclusion as it relates to, they didn't like him because the color of his skin. Let's stop. Like, seriously, these kids are friends. They don't want to say the color of the girl that he was with. They didn't want it. You notice that they didn't want to say anything. The freaking. I doubt he said freaking. I doubt he said freaking. Just their story as he tells it doesn't add up. So this thing cuts both ways. Let's let the information play out. Let's get the evidence, know what's going on before we jump to this racial narrative that simply benefits guys like Ben Crump.
Shamika.
I was just sitting here thinking, I pay for my kids' cell phone, so they will be adding Life 360. I think, thank you, Virgil. That's a awesome thing to say. I pay for it. And so if you don't want 360, pay for your own cell phone. Because my daughter thinks it's fine. She's 30. She thinks it's fine that, that's still my responsibility. I listened to them talk and I found it strange that they wanted to talk about the friend who's obviously Black and her children and just praise them for how long they've been friends and how much she trusted them. Because she had a name that sounded Black. I just thought it was strange, as Virgil is saying, it's going both ways that things aren't adding up. I think that children, again, will be children. This boy was 18. To think that he was some, monk or, he never was attracted to anybody is just foolish that he would have thought to stay behind. It happens all the time. Kids try to get away with what they can get away with. That's just the bottom line. So I am with everybody else. Let's see what comes out. But but please, let's stop using the whole race thing. It's tired. We're over it. And as one of you said before, you're dividing the community. If you went the opposite way, everyone would get behind you to see what happened to this young man who had a promising future. It wasn't like he was some thug that people are thinking, oh, well, good, he's gone. Everybody would have gotten behind that. But when you take the race road, it just really divides people. It ostracizes people who may want to help, who may be thinking, I don't want to take the race route. But they feel like they can't join in if they're not all BLM-y. And so I just think this was the wrong thing. If you're really looking for justice for your child, you have to be open for help from everybody. And I think they just completely wiped out a bunch of people.
Shamika, you've made an excellent point. They've turned Crump and Sharpton have turned the three white kids into victims. And you have people in that community that may have been like, hey, I do kind of want to know what happened here. But now they've been forced to choose a side and they've been made to feel sorry for the three survivors or unharmed kids. And it's like, now, man, if they're going to use this to paint our whole town, our whole city, our whole state as we're all just a bunch of flaming racists, now I'm invested in proving them wrong rather than just being a neutral observer and interested in the truth. This whole there are no winners here. Sharpton and Crump aren't trying to create winners. They're trying to create money. I think the parents are interested in making money. I don't think they're truly, sincerely interested in justice, and I'm sorry for saying that, but that's how their actions have presented them, in my opinion. I think we have a clip here from the Sharpton Crump press conference. I want to play that, and then we'll wrap things up.
So some people are saying, Reverend, are y'all bringing in race? Well, we're not bringing in race, but we're not discounting race either, because we don't know what it is. So to tell us don't rush to judgment saying it was racist is fine. But then I'm telling you, don't rush to judgment saying it was not racism, because we do not know. We do know what these parents are being told, and what the parents have now shared with us does not make sense.
Well, there's also, we could make a rush to judgment based on your history, Al, that this story is bogus and BS. You know, we could leave that as a possibility as well, that this is Tawana Brawley 10.0 for you. This is, you know, a race hoax. Anyway, you guys got to
chosen. I'm sorry, yeah, they couldn't have chosen a different backdrop. You know, like I see the red, black, and green. You couldn't do any other thing. It's just so silly to say, you know, don't act like it's not race. Y'all went with race out the gate, and you're still pushing that. The red, black, and green backdrop was intentional. We're not stupid.
Virgil, I'll give you a final thought here. If you had a prediction, which, and I don't want to hold you to that, but if you kind of want, I guess I'm seeing them push so many chips into the table. I'm like, can they really be this stupid? And I need to accept, yes, they can be this stupid. They could be pushing this many chips into the table with a handful of garbage, nothing in there, a 2-3, a jack, and a you know, they got nothing. They're not same suited. They're nothing. That is where I tend to lead, that they have nothing and this is going to blow up in their face, but maybe I'm wrong.
Time will tell, but to act like they're not making it about race when they invoke Emmett Till, when they invoke Colin Kaepernick, when they invoke Spike Lee, they're paying the money, they're doing, I mean, all of those things really don't, I mean, where's the money for these, like I said, the 5 Black folks that lost their lives in Chicago over the same weekend? Where's the money and the invoking of Emmett Till and all the other celebrity names of pro-blacks in those instances? It's not happening. And the reason why is it invalidates the point that Sharpton is trying to make, that it's not about race. If it's not about race, let's stop talking about it. Let's talk about truth, because the truth knows no color. What race does is race making the statement or trying to identify the racial component is an action as it pertains to motive. That comes later. Right now, what we need to know and understand are the facts. What actually happened? Where did it happen? How did it happen? By whom did it happen? And then from there, once we land on those things, we can the issue of race is so far down the road that if it's there at all, that we'd have to wait a long time to get to it. But they've actually taken put the cart in front of the horse, or the horse in front of the cart, rather. They've inverted the whole process and started with race, and now after the backlash from some, mainly your corner, you know, where we sit, they push back and say, well, we're not going to discount it either. Well, discount, like it was the wholesale of the whole product from the beginning. It's the whole narrative you're running with. It's the reason why you got on ABC, and you know you're in Washington with an autopsy, and you're in New York, you know, probably to accommodate Al Sharpton's schedule. I mean, that's what I'm thinking. But all of this is ridiculous. It needs to. I love the point that Shamika made. We're tired of this. It doesn't sell. Get to the truth, regardless of what comes of it, regardless of which ethnicity is responsible. We want to know the truth. And then from there, we can determine what motives are and walk through those kinds of things.
Ladies, gentlemen, enjoy your weekend. Thank you so much. I want to get to a couple of super chats before I do, while these guys are loading them up. I want to remind you of one great thing you can do this weekend for me and for yourself and for God. Donate to Preborn. Preborn is the organization that I've partnered with, we've partnered with here, that promotes our worldview that life begins at conception. They provide expectant mothers who are considering abortion. They provide them an ultrasound, introduces that baby's heartbeat, an image of the baby to the mother while the baby's in the womb. The woman is now twice as likely to choose life. Preborn then steps up and supports that woman and child for up to 2 years. They do it because we give money. Best way to give, preborn.com/fearless. That's preborn.com/fearless, or dial pound 250 and say the keyword baby. All right, Luke, let's get to these super chats and then we'll get out of here. Oh, thank you, Carmen Evans. My favorite show, Carmen. You could have said a little bit more. Thank you for the super chat. We appreciate it. Oh, all right. Oh, and she came back again with ESPN is trash. Huh? They came back with a third? Same person? Oh, laughing all the way to the bank, haters. Carmen, thank you. And thank you, guys. We'll see you on Monday.